English subtitles are available for this program.
This journey will take us through Egypt's main archaeological sites and the remains of the pharaoh's culture following the course of the Great River Nile. Obviously, the Great Pyramids will hold a special place. The Saqqara Pyramid is a step pyramid. It is a very ancient monument, part of a rich funerary complex. The Dondera Temple was dedicated to Hathor, the goddess of love. In Karnak, the sun god is venerated. Just down the Nile, the Ramesseum is a testimony of the cult to the king Ramses II. The Luxor Temple was paired with the Temple of Karnak. They were connected by a path lined with sphinxes. In Edfu, Horus the falcon-headed god ruled the city of Edfu. The Kom-Obo Temple is highly original as it is dedicated to two deities, Horus and Sobek. On the Philae Island, the god-mother Isis is venerated. She is the universal woman, wife, and mother. The 5,000 years of Egyptian civilization are usually cut up in several eras: the Old, the Middle, and the New Kingdom, interjected with intermediary periods. It was in the 3rd millennium BC that the first pharaohs of the ancient empire were born. As his authority grows, the king was furthermore deified. It is the era of pyramids, starting with the stepped versions at Saqqara and culminating in Giza under the 4th dynasty. It will witness the birth of the basis for architecture, painting, and sculpting that will be used throughout the Middle Kingdom. 1,000 years later, during the years 1500 to 1000 BC, the New Kingdom was considered the most prosperous of Egypt's history. It is a period of evolution and refinement with a cultural rebirth. This period gave us some of the greatest architectural feats, such as Luxor. This temple is a rare example of a superbly preserved New Kingdom divine foundation. This period's most famous pharaoh is Ramses II, who impressed history. Ramses II reigned 66 years, which is exceptional for the time. He was renowned for his warring skills and for being a conqueror. As soon as his reign began, he had already edified his funerary temple, the Temple of a Million Years. The first millennia BC is known as the Late Period. It is characterized by constant power struggles and foreign sovereigns taking over: Ethiopians, Assyrians, and Libyans. Though from very different cultures, these new sovereigns embraced the Egyptian model and its culture. They asked to be proclaimed as pharaohs, attempting to relive the glory of the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. The priests used these unpopular attitudes and took the power over the new foreign pharaohs. Despite a strong will to preserve the Ramesside heritage, Egypt was economically weakened and could not keep hold on its vastness, nor stem its decline. Afterwards, Egypt even became a province, firstly to the Persian Empire, then the Greeks under the Ptolemaic dynasty. The country would finally fall to the Roman Empire at the dawn of our era. Evidence of this can be found in Philae, where the Latin conquerors left traces, starting with a combination of gods and goddesses. These sites, abandoned and rediscovered in the 19th century thanks to the Egyptologists, tell the story of this great civilization. The story of the first missionaries starts at Cairo and its surroundings. At that time, the south of the country is not visited much. It was the 16th and 17th century that brought strangers to Upper Egypt. The first to come were religious groups, with Father François, Father Protet, and slowly they will travel south. They will even discover Thebes. One anonymous Venetian traveler in particular will take interest in this city and cross it, without actually knowing it was Thebes. The 19th century starts, bringing with it Bonaparte and his famous Egyptian expedition team from 1798 to 1801. It will be a considerable asset for Egypt's ancient culture, as it was a complete exploration, covering many domains. Indeed, Bonaparte came on his expedition with over 170 scholars. This group of specialists will gather a considerable amount of data that will trigger the first true discovery of an ancient civilization. The rediscovery of ancient Egypt is in a sense accredited to these scholars. This expedition will have a great impact everywhere, but mainly in France, as it was organized in France. An entire collection of documents were brought back and were used to create an important volume, the famous Description de l'Égypte, the description of Egypt. The French were not able to bring all the antiquities they had gathered during the expedition back to France. These antiques were blocked in Alexandria when the British fleet destroyed the French fleet. This confrontation and the subsequent destruction of the French fleet was followed by the capitulation of Alexandria that forced the French to hand over the antiquities they had collected to Great Britain. Even today, the British Museum holds the famous Rosetta Stone, the rubbings of which initiated Champollion's great discovery of the hieroglyphs. After Bonaparte's great expedition, more scientific endeavors will take place in Egypt, dig further and further, gathering even more data. One of the first great expeditions was the one led by Champollion, accompanied by Ippolito Rossellini. This Franco-Tuscan expedition was financed by King Charles X of France and the Grand Duke of Tuscany. The expedition lasted several years and resulted in an important collection documenting the civilization of the pharaohs. They crossed northern Egypt, arriving in Nubia. They made drawings and descriptive notes of all the monuments visited by the scholars. The documents made it possible to bring an entire catalogue of descriptions of the pharaohs and their reigns. This was an essential addition to the original Description de l'Égypte, or Description of Egypt. In the meantime, Champollion discovered the famous hieroglyphic language. These scholars not only described the monuments architecturally, but were also able to understand their function, because Champollion was able to examine them and read the hieroglyphic texts.
Champollion va pouvoir lire sur place tous les textes qu'il va pouvoir examiner. Quelques temps plus tard, nous aurons aussi une autre expédition scientifique très importante, celle que va mener Richard Lepsius et ses équipes. Alors c'est une expédition prussienne à l'époque.
Another important scientific expedition was led by Richard Lepsius and his teams after Champollion's time. It was a Prussian expedition. Following Champollion's steps, Lepsius visited the same sites and gathered more archaeological and epigraphic data. He published the famous Denkmäler in Germany, which represent a considerable amount of data on the Egypt of the pharaohs. In parallel to the scientific expeditions, the events that led to creating our current great museums took place. It's a peculiar time known as the War of the Councils. In the years 1815 to 1816, France had Bernardino Drovetti as its general counsel and Henri Salt as the British counsel, representing the British Empire. This is when the great European collections will become the richest, and particularly the French and the English collections.
Alors nous avons la visite en 1816 d'un certain Belzoni, qui, à la demande du consul
In 1816, a certain Belzoni came here as ordered by the consul Salt with the specific aim of moving the bust of a statue in the second courtyard of the temple that was known until then as the Young Memnon. Belzoni began this operation in July 1816 and managed to transport this colossus from the Ramesseum by boat all the way to Alexandria.
Et puis le faire partir jusqu'à Alexandrie. Et d'Alexandrie, bien entendu, ce buste ira vers...
From there, it went to England.
C'est aujourd'hui, bien sûr, le jeune Memnon.
Today, one of the most visited pieces of the British Museum is the same Young Memnon.
Alors, ça fait partie de toutes ces pièces majeures qui ont...
Many major pieces were taken as time passed, in a period where antiquities were not protected by any legislation.
Donc, ce qui veut dire que finalement, tous ces voyageurs qui parcouraient l'Égypte...
Travelers could cross Egypt and were able to buy everything they wanted. Other objects were simply taken. This is why there are so many pieces in the museums. They were taken at a time when no real legislation operated the trade of antiquities.
World news, local news, they all matter to us in Hong Kong. ViuTV6 offers the latest news and top stories from home to around the world, bringing you the most up-to-date information with our high standards of accuracy and fact-checking. Regardless of distance, we're here to get you to the truth. ViuTV News, tonight at 7 on ViuTV6.
Insurance coverage with extra protection gives you added peace of mind. A small levy can enhance regulation of the insurance industry and protection for policyholders. Under the system from April 1st, 2021, the Insurance Authority collects a levy from policyholders at a new rate, which is 0.1% of the insurance premiums, and the cap has been adjusted accordingly. Insurers have been directed to collect the levy for the authority. Please contact your insurer for details. Small levy, big protection.
That's blown my mind.
An array of talented singers strives to impress TV's biggest judging panel, The 100.
You are outstanding.
The more who join in, the higher the contestant scores.
Everyone was up on their feet.
But this is no easy task. Who will win a place in the grand final?
I got the sweet.
All together now. Tuesday nights at 8:30 on ViuTV6. Stuck at home every day?
I've lost that mojo.
Why not whip something up in your kitchen?
The rice is really nice.
I quite fancy this one.
Check out what Simon Rimmer has in store.
This is cooking. Yeah, it smells so good. Just look at that.
Share clever shortcuts for the best home meals.
You're not wasting anything at all.
Yeah.
Let your MasterChef talent shine.
I knew you were good, but I didn't know you were that good.
Eat the Week, Friday night at 8 on ViuTV6. The NBA is here, and it's time to get excited. Catch up with the latest news, highlights and match recaps. Take a deep dive into every team of the league. Your weekly dose of the game. NBA action. Saturday night at 11:45 on viutv6.
Alors, le début de l'archéologie française, on le doit surtout à...
We owe the beginnings of French archaeology to Mariette.
Évidemment, qui était quand même le fondateur d'abord.
He was the founder of the Service of Egyptian Antiquities and the first who thought and designed an archaeological museum in Cairo, the famous Boulak Museum in its first form.
Dans sa première version. Alors, Auguste Mariette a fouillé dans bien des sites.
Auguste Mariette conducted digs in many sites and has crossed the country from the Delta to Upper Egypt. His considerable excavations have enabled the collection of beautiful monuments and objects that were in the first place recorded, then brought to the first Egyptian museum in Boulak. The latter was later transferred at Mariette's death to the Giza Museum before being permanently relocated in the Great Museum of Pharaonic Antiquities, a recent creation dating back to 1902.
Qui remonte à 1902. Donc,
Mariette was the founder of the Service for Antiquities in 1858. From that moment, he set an effective legislation that enabled to regulate all archaeological concessions. They were gradually given to foreign excavators to ensure control over all archaeological sites. The initial adventure slowly structured itself and evolved, so when Mariette left the scene, Gaston Maspero took over. Maspero directed the Antiquities Service for a number of years and was also the founder of the École Française du Caire, the French School of Cairo. France truly started implementing itself in the Egyptian Egyptologist field. This school still exists today under the name of l'Institut Français de l'Archéologie Orientale, the French Institute of the Oriental Archaeology. A great number of French Egyptologists, archaeologists, and philologists attended this school. In the decades following Gaston Maspero, the French presence in Egyptian archaeology rose continuously, as the Egyptian Antiquities Service kept being directed by French experts for a long time, until the revolution led by Gamal Abdel Nasser.
Le service des antiquités de l'Égypte continuera d'être dirigé par des experts français, jusqu'à la révolution finalement qui a été conduite par Gamal Abdel Nasser.
Today's context is very different, Egypt being the master of its destiny. Since the Naserian Revolution, Egyptians have directed the Antiquities Service. Nowadays, some authorizations are given to foreign missions. These official missions ensure the upkeep of digs, restoration works, and conservations in the complex of archaeological sites to make sure we continue exploring them. These are short-term missions, as the financing has greatly diminished, and Egypt no longer manages financing of foreign missions. Foreign missions now have to finance themselves. Today, these foreign expeditions work 1, 4, or 5 months per year on a single site. Their goal is to deepen and broaden the excavations, to make epigraphic, iconographic, or architectural surveys, and to restore or preserve a monument. Egyptologist research includes many archaeological missions that mix different nationalities, as there are French and British, as well as Germans, Italians, Spanish, Russians, and Americans. So we have a whole palette of nationalities working to further Egyptologist research in Egypt.
Donc on a pratiquement un grand éventail de nationalités, si vous voulez, dans la recherche égyptologique sur place en Égypte.
Another undeniable jewel of the Nile This one constructed for the most part under the 18th and 19th dynasties in the 14th century BC, the Temple of Luxor or Opet in the south is an Egyptian temple dedicated to the cult of Ammon. It is located on the site of the ancient city Thebes, the capital of the empire, which has also held the Karnak Temple in the north. Dedicated to the divine triad of Thebes, Ammon, Mut, his wife, and Khonsu, their son, the Luxor temple functioned in partnership with that of Karnak, to which it was linked with path lined with sphinxes, a dromos over 2 kilometers long and bordered by 700 sphinxes, with those close to Luxor in the image of the pharaohs. Each year during the festival of Opet, the god Ammon would take this path to go to his southern harem in a grandiose procession. Luxor Temple is in some ways the complement to the great temple of Ammon at Karnak, as it was dedicated to the dynastic king's role as genitor, under the guise of Amun-Min, the impregnator. The oldest currently visible parts of the temple date back to Amenhotep III. It was later modified by Ramses II, who notably added 6 monumental statues and 2 obelisks, one of which was offered to France in 1831 and has stood in the Place de la Concorde in Paris since then. The Great Pylon entrance measures 65 meters wide and 24 meters high. Its 2 massifs were originally covered by a white primer decorated with precious metal plaques and sculpted decorations painted with vivid colors. Of the 6 colossal statues of Ramses II carved out of blocks of pink and gray granite, 2 sitting and 4 standing, there remains only 3, 2 sitting and 1 on foot. These giant effigies evoke the divine aspect of the king. Executed in the most pure style of the 18th dynasty, Luxor Temple constitutes an example of the divine foundation of the new kingdom that is rare for having remained so well preserved. Four baboons in poses of adoration are carved onto the pedestal of the pink granite obelisk that remains in place. This obelisk stands about 26 meters high and weighs around 230 tons. Its pyramidal summit was covered by a sheet of electrum, an alloy of 80% gold and 20% silver, which sparkled in the sunlight, symbolizing the sun god Ra. On each of its faces, 3 rows of vertical inscriptions repeat the name and titles of Ramses the Great, the glorifier of Thebes, favorite of the 2 goddesses, and having established monuments in Luxor for his father, Ammon, who placed him on the throne, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Ra's chosen one. Luxor Temple was conceived according to a classical plan. Crossing the pylon through a narrow door, the procession which came from Karnak with the solar boat of the god Ra would first cross this courtyard before getting to the sanctuary, where the statuette of the god was kept in the precious naos. This first courtyard, built under Ramses II, is surrounded by porticos, including a double row of 74 massive columns that recall those of Karnak. With smooth bases and closed papyrus-shaped capitals. This majestic courtyard has a width of 50 meters and a length of 57. And each surface is covered by ceremonial inscriptions. To build this courtyard, Ramses' architect took into account the existence of a triple chapel repository to Hatshepsut. Constructed for the Theban triad, it would be restored by Ramses II on the occasion of the construction of the pylon. The chapel is preceded by fine columns in the form of papyrus bouquets of the 18th dynasty. The south end of courtyard is also ornamented by colossal statues that alternate with the columns. 11 giant statues on foot and 2 colossal statues sitting. The majority of them were sculpted in granite, and they all carried the name Ramses II. The colossal statue materializes 2 facets of the king, the human and the divine. The role of the colossal statue is the cult, the elevation of the king to divinity. Ramses II was a great theologian. He adopted for himself the initiative of the monotheistic cult of the sun begun by Akhenaten, but he also preserved the traditional religions. While working to develop a religion without borders based on his own person, he continued to favor the temples of the great gods of the empire, Amun, Ra, Ta, or Osiris, in order to bring the people together. He bestowed a splendor without equal to temples and cults to gods all over. 2 more sitting colossal statues in the form of Ramses the Great precede the entrance of the great processional colonnade. The bas-relief that ornaments the southern wall reveals the initial appearance of the pylon with the 2 obelisks and 6 colossal statues to us. This work shows the first 17 royal princes, conducted by Ramses II himself, who leads the inaugural procession and directs it towards the pylon. For the occasion of this solemn procession, large decorated bulls were brought to be sacrificed. The space between their horns was sometimes garnished with feathers, or sometimes the mask of a Nubian or the mask of a Semite. Their sacrifice was a substitute for that of the Nubian or Asian populations that, according to ancient tradition, each king had to put to death to ensure his triumph. Under the watch of the 2 colossal statues of the pharaoh, we cross the second pylon of Amenhotep III and enter the processional colonnade. Its columns are more than 20 meters high and mark the proper entrance to the temple. The structures of Amenhotep III began with this pylon and the colonnade of 14 papyrus-shaped columns with open capitals, the highest of all the remaining edifices conserved in the temple. This hall is made up of 2 rows of 7 bell-shaped, smooth columns, on top of which heavy architraves are placed. The processional colonnade constitutes the solemn entrance to the temple of Amenhotep III and measures some 52 meters. Because Thebes was the seat of divine and royal power, the simple local god Amun was merged with the universal sun god Ra. In this way, Amun-Ra acquired a dominant place above the other Egyptian gods, and upon which the power of the new pharaohs of the new kingdom was founded.
Home bitter home.
This home at the moment is so dark.
Never mind these unloved homes.
It looks a bit, I guess, dated.
Because it's got everything in my head I think I don't like.
Because with the help of George Clark and his team,
Oh, wow, it's amazing.
It's gone from dark to something wonderful.
It's so different.
even the shabbiest house can become a gorgeous home.
Oh, what a change already.
Ugly house to lovely house with George Clark. Tonight at 8 on viutv6. This week, we bring on the Philadelphia 76ers. If it's a contest without the Nets, the Sixers are probably the major contenders in the East. In the past, many thought they had talent but lacked chemistry. Now, a year older and a year wiser, what advice will they give to the rising stars from the Pelicans? The NBA Game of the Week. Philadelphia 76ers take on New Orleans Pelicans. Saturday morning at 8. Live on Channel 99 View TV. Get the latest news and top stories from Germany, Europe, and around the world in the fields of politics, business, sport, science, and more. deliver unbiased information, and provide you with insightful perspectives on global affairs.
Making headlines around the world today.
Promote diversity in the newsroom. DW News, weekdays at 4 on viutv6. Are they ruins or masterpieces?
It's a hidden airbase inside of a mountain.
It was designed to be protected against a nuclear weapon that was used at Hiroshima.
Forgotten structures, abandoned cities, and secret installations that are full of mysteries.
It's one of the most claustrophobic places on Earth. Over 5,000 people lived in a really tiny community. It was military.
That is an incredible engineering achievement.
Why are they left to decay? And could they be brought back to life?
Those early projects were incredibly important.
And it's amazing that it still stands.
Abandoned Engineering. Wednesday night at 9:30 on viutv6. Extraordinary journey of ordinary cooks.
It's perfect.
Beautiful.
Uncovering culinary talent.
Your time starts now.
I could eat a bowl of that just on its own. I mean, that was wonderful.
Hidden gems in home kitchens.
That is beautifully seasoned.
Because the kids really like
Showing off their flair, skill and creativity.
I'm going to bring Philippines on the table today.
Oh, good.
Heartwarming and entertaining.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Oh, dear, dear, dear.
Britain's best home cook. Thursday night at 8:30 on viutv6.
The reliefs on the lateral walls of the pathway date back to Tutankhamun and Horemheb in the 14th century BC. They show the official festival of Opet. This celebration took place during the second month of the flood season. In a ceremonial boat pulled by a procession from the Nile River during its growth, the Theban triad of Ammon, his wife Mut, and their son Khonsu would travel from Karnak Temple to Luxor Temple, surrounded by soldiers, musicians, and dancers. There, the god Ammon, taking on his fertile form Amen-Min, rediscovered his vigor. And then, at the end of the celebrations that would last 11 days, he would return to Karnak, this time by way of the Great Dromos, still in the company of his divine family. Built around the sanctuary of Amen-Min, Luxor Temple was consecrated to the mystery of life that the god Amun, in the form of the beneficent Nile River, renewed each year. The colonnade leads to the second hypostyle courtyard. A great square courtyard 52 meters long and 46 meters wide, the Solar Court, is bordered on three sides by a double row of 64 papyrus capital columns with fluted polygonal bodies. The numerous architraves on which the name Amenhotep III is engraved still hold an unchanged freshness to this day and let you guess how impressive the courtyard must have been before. The solar boats cross the courtyard during the festival of Opet to take their place in small chapels arranged for this purpose, openings in the walls of the porticos. The sanctuary itself, or rather Ammon's residence, as well as the rooms that precede it, have conserved a good part of their slab coverings. The first room of this covered area, the hypostyle hall, hold 32 papyrus columns of the same type as those of the courtyard arranged in 4 rows. It was illuminated by daylight, creating an intermediary space between the bright sun of the courtyard and the darkness of the small rooms of the temple. When the Romans transformed Luxor into a military camp in the 3rd century AD, the second hypostyle hall, called the vestibule, was transformed into a chapel of the imperial religion. After that, the walls were newly redecorated with a stucco primer and figures painted in a purely Greco-Roman style. They would later turn away from the religion, and a chapel in the honor of the great Emperor Augustus would even be erected. But let's go back to ancient times and another room with representations of the gods, located nearby at the end of the temple. This small room with 4 columns held the table of offerings. Here, during the 15 days of the festival of Opet, priests followed each other in, leaving the diverse fresh victuals that were necessary for the festivities of the gods. The decorations show Amenhotep III paying tribute to God and receiving the crown of Egypt from the hands of his divine father Amon. Luxor is one of the most ancient holy places in the world. Indeed, the religious use of the site has continued more or less uninterrupted for more than 3,500 years, even if it was entirely reworked during the New Empire. The persistence of a religious location whose splendor hasn't ceased despite the somersaults of history. After having reached the door of the offering room, we enter into the Holy of Holies, the sanctuary room of the holy abode of the god Amon. The room was supported by 4 grand columns, the bases of which appear on the tiling. Among the adjoining rooms, including storerooms, we notice in particular the repository chapels dedicated to the Theban triad. On the walls, the king censes and offers libations and bouquets of flowers to Amon. The offerings, including the decorated bulls, are brought here by the king's butchers. The rooms leading up to the naos commemorate the myth of the king's supernatural origin in graven images. Amon will once again marry Mut, who will again give birth to Khonsu, a ritual where the pharaoh will also be reborn from his father Amon. Thus, each new reign favored the beginning of a new cycle. Furthermore, this allowed a celebration of the permanence of the royal function, periodically renewed by Amon. This was, in fact, the major function of such a temple. Paired with Karnak in Thebes, the ancient capital of the country, Luxor was certainly the most important religious site in Egypt during the New Kingdom. Dendera lies in Egypt on the banks of the Nile River around 65 kilometers to the north of Luxor. Begun under the reign of the last Ptolemy, the Temple of Dendera was finished during the Roman Empire under the Emperor Nero around the year 60 AD. This site is extraordinarily well preserved, with its very deep crypts dug into the width of the walls and covered in strongly colored religious bas-relief. Its main temple, dedicated to the goddess Hathor, is the largest, covering some 40,000 square meters. It is also one of the most well-preserved temples of the site, if not the best in all of Egypt. It is also one of the most well-decorated of the Ptolemaic era. In Egyptian mythology, Hathor is the goddess of love, beauty, music, motherhood, and joy. She is venerated at Dendera and associated with the god Horus, her husband of the temple at Edfu. She is represented in the form of a woman carrying the solar disk between her horns or as a cow. The first king to whom we attribute the construction of the temple at Dendera is Ptolemy XII. It was surrounded by a thick brick wall, the remains of which still exist today, and demonstrate, if it is still necessary, all the architectural know-how of the ancient Egyptians. The adobe brick wall that surrounds the complex of monuments at Dendera includes the gateway of the Roman emperors Domitian and Trajan, constructed during the final period of the temple at the end of the 1st century. Vestiges of chapels, even Roman ones, can be found at the entrance. The ancient Greeks identify Hathor as the goddess Aphrodite and the Romans as Venus. In Egypt, the goddess of the power of femininity was Isis, but though the two goddesses were initially in competition, they were merged in the later periods, and we see representations of Isis with a haircut of Hathor appear. Hathor is generally represented as a goddess cow, with horns between which the solar disk and uraeus appear. To the east, another part of the city stretches out, with a Coptic basilica in the center. It was probably constructed in the 5th century, which shows the adaptation and appropriation of ancestral cultural sites by the Christian religion. Elsewhere, the necropolis of the city contains very ancient tombs from the pre-dynastic era and the end of the ancient empire. According to the inscriptions relating to the founding of the temple, its layout was inspired by very old documents dating back to Khufu and even mythic times. But currently, the oldest monument still visible is a Mamisi dating from the era of Nectanebo I.
World news, local news, they all matter to us in Hong Kong. ViuTV6 offers the latest news and top stories from home to around the world, bringing you the most up-to-date information with our high standards of accuracy and fact-checking. Regardless of distance, we're here to get you to the truth. ViuTV News, tonight at 7 on ViuTV6.
No matter how fit we are, it is important to get vaccinated to prevent COVID-19. All along, we have received different vaccines to prevent infections. Vaccines will help create antibodies and memory in our immune system. When we come into contact with viruses in future, our immune system will quickly resist them. It is the simplest and most effective method to protect ourselves and others. Remember to get vaccinated.
That's blown my mind.
An array of talented singers strives to impress TV's biggest judging panel, The 100.
You are outstanding.
The more who join in, the higher the contestant scores.
Everyone was up on their feet.
But this is no easy task. Who will win a place in the grand final?
I got the sweet.
All together now. Tuesday nights at 8:30 on viutv6. Stuck at home every day?
I've lost that mojo.
Why not whip something up in your kitchen?
The rice is really nice.
I quite fancy this one.
Check out what Simon Rimmer has in store.
This is cooking. Yeah, it smells so good. Just look at that.
Share clever shortcuts for the best home meals.
You're not wasting anything at all.
Yeah.
Let your MasterChef talent shine.
I knew you were good, but I don't know you were that good.
Eat the Week, Friday night at 8 on viutv6.
Dondera Temple is different from other Greco-Roman temples because it possesses neither monumental pylons nor a porticoed courtyard. 4 columns with capitals ornament the facade, and one accesses the temple by entering directly into the hypostyle hall. The 4 heads of Hathor ornamenting the capitals of each column proclaim the universal character of the goddess. The scenes show the triad of Hathor, Horus, and their son Harsumptus, who is offered the lotus which is linked to the rising sun. Higher up, we see the sacred Horus, the King of Kings. The trapezoidal facade is topped by a cornice. At certain hours of the day, the light skimming the architrave allows one to better contemplate the diverse divinities making offerings, who advance towards the centrally located symbol of the goddess, the winged solar disk. The hypostyle hall was decorated at the beginning of our era under the reigns of the Roman emperors Augustus and Nero. 18 Hathoric columns support the ceiling, the capitals of which featured the face of the goddess Hathor on 4 sides, wearing a heavy wig and capped by a sistrum, her favorite musical instrument. These plant-like columns evoke the night in which the moon hides. They represent the primordial swamp from which all creation springs, the source of all life. All of the columns and all of the inner walls are covered by magnificent hieroglyphs, the colors of which are still preserved underneath the dust. The ceiling of the hypostyle hall is divided by architraves into 7 spans. They are a base for astronomic representations, the diurnal trajectory of the sun, the nocturnal trajectory of the moon, the 12 hours of the day and night, and even eclipses. Astronomy is linked to the cult of Hathor, and the priests closely followed the movements of the stars as a way of establishing a precise calendar of religious celebrations. Another span shows the lunar calendar divided in 14 characters, representing the phases of the moon. Is represented by the eye. The ceiling of the hypostyle hall of the Temple of Dendera is a nearly exhaustive inventory of the astronomic knowledge of the Egyptians during the Ptolemaic era. The interior walls of the hypostyle hall are ornamented with reliefs. Above, on the 4 registers, the names of the Roman emperors who shared the title of pharaoh appear: Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. They all worship Hathor and dedicate offerings to her. On one wall, we see the king and a priest as they sense the soul of the ruler. In the sanctuary, they put the boats destined for the goddess as well as her statues. The bas-reliefs depict a succession of daily religious rites the king had to accomplish, like breaking the seals of the door, worshipping Hathor, or offering her incense. Of course, the king himself could not accomplish all these rites on his own. These are the priests who acted as his substitutes for the task. Small, very narrow corridors built into the width of the walls or the foundations lead to small-sized decorated rooms. The crypts, hidden places exclusively reserved for priests. These rooms, arranged in several levels, serve to store divine and sacred objects, the treasures of the temple, religious materials, and the archives. To the right, we enter into the open-ceiling courtyard. It precedes the small kiosk of the New Year. On the ceiling of the kiosk, we see representations of Nut and of the birth of the sun, which beams its rays onto the temple. Represented here by the head of Hathor, which we recognize by its cow-like ears sticking out of its hair. It stands on a mountain between 2 trees. Halfway up the stairs, the procession would stop in order for the priest to complete all the rituals celebrating the union of the goddess Hathor to the solar disk. The roof of the temple was topped by the kiosk of the disk, laid out on a rectangle with its 12 columns pointing Hathor's face to the 4 cardinal directions. This is where the celebration of the New Year was held each year. With the rising sun, as part of the ceremony called the Union to the Disk, they would transport the statue of Hathor to the roof of the temple so that it could be regenerated by the solar rays of her father Ra. In another kiosk, the ceiling shows a famous map of the sky, the constellations, and the decans, which is known as the Dendera zodiac. The Dendera zodiac is a map of the stars projected on a plane. It shows the 12 constellations of the zodiac, the 36 decans, and the planets. Some of these are represented in the same forms as those of their familiar names, for example, those of Aries, Taurus, Scorpio, Capricorn, or Leo. Moving on, we see a statue of the god Bes on the ground in the courtyard. He is a grotesque pot-bellied god, but also the one who protected the birth of Hathor's divine child. Other scattered stones set the imagination free. Going around the perimeter of the temple, on the rear face, there is a representation of the Queen Cleopatra, accompanied by her son Caesarion, who is fathered by Caesar. Now it's time to leave Hathor here and continue our trip along the Nile to go upriver towards Aswan.
Coming up next, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Season 5. Home Bitter Home.
This home at the moment is so dark.
Never mind these unloved homes.
It looks a bit, I guess, dated.
Because it's got everything in my head I think I don't like.
Because with the help of George Clark and his team...
Oh, wow, it's amazing.
It's gone from dark to something wonderful.
It's so different.
Even the shabbiest house can become a gorgeous home.
Oh, what a change already.
Ugly house to lovely house with George Clark. Tonight at 8 on viutv6.
Billie Eilish is staying true to her word and giving her fans a new era as promised. starting with a major hair transformation, from her signature jet black and neon green colored locks to a platinum blonde. The pop singer debuted the new shade, styled in trendy curtain bangs, on Instagram, which she captioned simply, "Pinch Me." Eilish also shared a clip of herself shaking out her tresses, asking fans whether they guessed correctly what her new image would be like. Late last year, Billie promised fans that she would change up her hair once her documentary, The World's a Little Blurry, came out in February. And in fact, the superstar has apparently been a blonde bombshell for a few weeks now. Even though Eilish sported her signature neon look while attending the recent Grammy Awards, fans had already been speculating that the superstar probably wore a wig, even as she performed and accepted 2 more Grammys this year at the music event. The 19-year-old star is, of course, no stranger to hair color transformations, as she's rocked numerous different hues over the years, ranging between silver, violet, black, various shades of blue, and the black and green she's donned since 2019. According to throwback photos, though, Billie is naturally a blonde, so she's really just going back to her roots.
This week, we bring on the Philadelphia 76ers. If it's a contest without the Nets, the Sixers are probably the major contenders in the East. In the past, many thought they had talent but lacked chemistry. Now, a year older and a year wiser, what advice will they give to the rising stars from the Pelicans? The NBA Game of the Week. Philadelphia 76ers take on New Orleans Pelicans. Saturday morning at 8. Live on Channel 99 View TV. Are they ruins or masterpieces?
It's a hidden airbase inside of a mountain.
That was designed to be protected against a nuclear weapon that was used at Hiroshima.
Forgotten structures, abandoned cities, and secret installations that are full of mysteries.
It's one of the most claustrophobic places on Earth. Over 5,000 people lived in a really tiny community. It was military.
That is an incredible engineering achievement.
Why are they left to decay? And could they be brought back to life?
Those early projects were incredibly important.
And it's amazing that it still stands.
Abandoned Engineering. Wednesday night at 9:30 on viutv6. Extraordinary journey of ordinary cooks.
It's perfect.
Beautiful.
Uncovering culinary talent.
Your time starts now.
I could eat a bowl of that just on its own. I mean, that was wonderful.
Hidden gems in home kitchens.
That is beautifully seasoned.
Because the kids really like
Showing off their flair, skill, and creativity.
I'm going to bring Philippines on the table today.
Oh, good.
Heartwarming and entertaining.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Oh, dear, dear, dear.
Britain's best home cook. Thursday night at 8:30 on viutv6. World news, local news, they all matter to us in Hong Kong. viutv6 offers the latest news and top stories from home to around the world, bringing you the most up-to-date information with our high standards of accuracy and fact-checking. Regardless of distance, we're here to get you to the truth. View TV News, tonight at 7 on viutv6.
I will help fight the virus.
I will protect Hong Kong.
The government has launched the Leave Home Safe mobile app for everyone to keep visit records. Remember to use the app to scan QR codes of designated venues.
Visit records will only be kept in your phone.
If you went somewhere visited by a confirmed patient around the same time, the app will automatically alert you and give health advice. Use the app together. Feel at ease when going out.
Let's fight the virus.
Scan with Leave Home Safe.
That's blown my mind.
An array of talented singers strives to impress TV's biggest judging panel, The 100.
You are outstanding.
The more who join in, the higher the contestant scores.
Everyone was up on their feet.
But this is no easy task. Who will win a place in the grand final?
I got the sweet.
All together now. Tuesday nights at 8:30 on viutv6. Stuck at home every day?
I've lost that mojo.
Why not whip something up in your kitchen?
The rice is really nice.
I quite fancy this one.
Check out what Simon Rimmer has in store.
This is cooking.
Yeah, it smells so good. Just Just look at that.
Share clever shortcuts for the best home meals.
You're not wasting anything at all.
Let your MasterChef talent shine.
I knew you were good, but I didn't know you were that good.
Eat the Week, Friday night at 8 on viutv6. Coming up next, Factory Made Season 2. Home Bitter Home.
This home at the moment is so dark.
Never mind these unloved homes.
It looks a bit, I guess, dated.
Because it's got everything in my head I think I don't like.
Because with the help of George Clark and his team...
Oh, wow, it's amazing.
It's gone from dark to something wonderful.
It's so different.
Even the shabbiest house can become a gorgeous home.
Oh, what a change already.
Ugly house to lovely house with George Clark. Tonight at 8 on viutv6.
Pierce Brosnan is going from secret agent to superhero because the former James Bond has been cast to star opposite Dwayne Johnson as the magical hero Dr. Fate in the upcoming DC comic book flick Black Adam. Pierce joins an already star-studded cast featuring Johnson as the title anti-hero, Aldous Hodge, who will play Hawkman, Noah Centineo will suit up as Atom Smasher, and Quintessa Swindell portrays Cyclone. Aladdin actor Marwan Kenzari is also attached to the project, but his role as well as the plot of the movie are still being kept tightly under wraps. Jaume Collet-Serra, who also recently helmed The Rock's upcoming adventure film Jungle Cruise, co-starring Emily Blunt, will take the director's chair for Black Adam as well. The blockbuster is the second DC collaboration with New Line Productions, following the critical and commercial success of Shazam in 2019, which earned over $360 million, a figure nearly 17 times its production cost. Brosnan, meanwhile, was recently seen in the comedy Eurovision Song Contest The Story of Fire Saga, alongside Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams, and will appear this summer in the musical adaptation of the classic fairy tale Cinderella, opposite Camila Cabello as the title princess.
All of us hope to live in a stable environment. National security is essential for the prosperity of society. Upholding national security for harmonious and better living requires the concerted efforts of all who love the country and Hong Kong. Improve electoral system. Ensure patriots administering Hong Kong. April the 15th, National Security Education Day. Uphold national security. Safeguard our home. To know more, please visit www.nsed.gov.hk.
This week, we bring on the Philadelphia 76ers. If it's a contest without the Nets, the Sixers are probably the major contenders in the East. In the past, many thought they had talent but lacked chemistry. Now, a year older and a year wiser, what advice will they give to the rising stars from the Pelicans? The NBA Game of the Week. Philadelphia 76ers take on New Orleans Pelicans. Saturday morning at 8. Live on Channel 99 View TV. Are they ruins or masterpieces?
A hidden airbase inside of a mountain.
That was designed to be protected against a nuclear weapon that was used at Hiroshima.
Forgotten structures, abandoned cities, and secret installations that are full of mysteries.
It's one of the most claustrophobic places on Earth. Over 5,000 people lived in a really tiny community. It was military.
That is an incredible engineering achievement.
Why are they left to decay? And could they be brought back to life?
Those early projects were incredibly important.
And it's amazing that it still stands.
Abandoned engineering. Wednesday night at 9:30 on viutv6. Extraordinary journey of ordinary cooks.
It's perfect.
Beautiful.
Uncovering culinary talent.
Your time starts now.
I could eat a bowl of that just on its own. I mean, that was wonderful.
Hidden gems in home kitchens.
That is beautifully seasoned. Because the kids really like
showing off their flair, skill, and creativity.
I'm going to bring Philippines on the table today.
Oh, good.
Heartwarming and entertaining.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Oh, dear, dear, dear.
Britain's best home cook. Thursday night at 8:30 on viutv6. English and Chinese subtitles are available for this program.
Why do balloons stretch when they inflate instead of pop? What makes an aluminum wheel strong enough to support a car that's 60 times its own weight? How does a paper airplane turn into a paper envelope? And what makes a whistle whistle? Find out next on Factory Made. Balloons don't actually grow on trees, but they do come from them. That's because balloons couldn't be made without the milky sap of rubber trees, which we know as latex. Latex is a naturally stretchy substance, but it's not until the latex is turned into rubber that the balloon has the elasticity it needs to inflate to 5 times its original size. Balloons start out in liquid form with the milky white latex from the rubber tree. Powdered pigment changes the color of the latex. And to enhance its natural stretchiness, other elements, including sulfur and zinc oxide, are added to the mix. They'll be activated later when the mix is heated to turn the latex into rubber. Row upon row of ceramic shapes that look like little light bulbs are the molds that will form the latex into balloons. The molds take a bath in a tank of citric acid to burn off any impurities. Even the tiniest speck of dust on the mold could cause a flaw or weakness in the balloon. In order to make the latex stick to the molds just enough, but not too much, the molds are coated in calcium nitrate. The calcium nitrate is a coagulant that helps the latex adhere to the forms. An oven dries off the water, leaving only a film of calcium nitrate on the molds. Finally, the vat of blue liquid latex rises up to completely coat the molds, forming the skin of the balloon. An oven heats the balloons for 5 minutes to firm up the skins even more. Then, 2 nylon brushes roll down the top of the warm skin, which is still soft enough to curl into the lip that's used to blow up the balloon. But it's not until the balloons bake in an oven at 170 degrees that the skin transforms into the stretchy rubber of a balloon. The heat activates the sulfur and zinc oxide in the latex mix, which strengthens the bond between the molecules in the latex, converting it into rubber. And it's because of that super strong bond between the molecules that rubber is so rubbery and stretchy enough to inflate into a balloon without tearing. Once the rubber is set, a squirt of water between the ceramic molds and the balloons loosens the skins. So a set of carpet pads can strip the balloons off the molds, 1 row at a time. A few balloons in every batch go through a series of spot tests to check for weak spots, lumps, and tears. Then, some balloons get a custom paint job, which must be done while the balloons are inflated. Suction cups rotate the balloons as they pass through a series of silk screens until all sides are printed. Then, wiper blades apply a thin layer of quick-drying rubber over the ink. And a ride through a heat tunnel dries everything in place. The balloons deflate, and sprayers coat the finished balloons in a solution of water and silicone, which gives them a glossy finish and prevents the balloons from sticking together in the bag. And these little rubber pouches are ready to stretch their bounds and blow up at a birthday party or other celebration without popping. And that makes the party and the world a more festive place. The rubber may be what hits the road, but it's the wheels that are doing all the work. While the tires fit around the wheels to cushion the ride, it's actually the wheels that bolt to the axle of the car and turn to make the car go. The wheels have to be light enough for the car to perform well and get good gas mileage, but also strong enough to support the full weight of the car, which can be 4,000 pounds or more. The wheel cannot fail because the safety of the whole car and everyone in it is riding on it. To make the wheels as strong as possible, each one is machined from a single piece of aluminum. That way, there are no parts to come loose or break. It takes a carbide blade to cut the raw aluminum stock into 30-pound billets. Each billet makes one wheel, with 20 billets cut from each bar. The billets travel through an oven for 2 hours until they're heated to over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. This softens the aluminum for forging without melting it. A rotary forge machine takes the soft billet and presses it into a thin disc using 4,000 tons of pressure. The heat from the furnace, along with the incredible pressure, not only reshapes the aluminum, it rearranges the molecules into a tight circular pattern. This new molecular arrangement gives the wheel its strength and durability. When the disc is cooled to room temperature, it travels to the cold forming machine. The disc sits on a mandrel. Then, giant rollers drop down, and like a potter's wheel, the rollers mold and stretch the aluminum into a wheel. A coolant cuts down on the friction, but blocks the process from view. We asked them to run the machine without coolant for a minute, so we could see how it shapes and stretches the metal. The aluminum goes from flat disc to a wheel that's 18 inches tall in just 45 seconds. A rack hoists the wheels up into a furnace that heats them to 985 degrees. Once again, the aluminum is not melted. It's only heated or tempered to even out and further strengthen the molecular structure in the aluminum. A tank of cold water rolls into place under the furnace to immediately quench the wheels as they emerge. This literally freezes the new denser molecular structure in place, locking in the strength. A computer-controlled lathe carves out the rims and other contours of the wheel. A smaller mill carves out a spoke-like design, which is part style and part function. In addition to giving the wheels a sporty look, the openings help circulate air and cool the brakes. The mill cuts away more material to create holes for the lug nuts that hold the wheel to the axle. The finished wheel is carefully inspected to make sure it's perfectly round. A dial takes measurements at various angles around the wheel. If it's not perfect, the tire could wear out faster in certain spots, creating a safety hazard. If the wheel passes, buffers move in to polish the aluminum to a bright shine. And the brand new wheels are ready to hit the road. Next, find out what that little ball is really doing inside a whistle. And discover the secret to folding 800 envelopes every minute.
Competitive couples.
Go!
We came here to compete.
Losing is not an option.
Take on the ultimate test on their strength.
I think we have the perfect combination here.
To win a grand prize and be crowned the fittest couple.
It's game time!
Battle of the Fittest Couples. Monday night at 8:30 on viutv6. Being a woman is hard.
You know, a lot of girls struggle with that.
Being the woman behind a footballer is even harder.
I won't let you down.
She has to look beautiful and posh all the time.
She sent you a bunch of offensively small dresses too.
Elegant, classic.
I love it.
Be a social butterfly who is a secret mastermind.
What is wrong with her? Why does she keep doing that?
I would suggest that if you are in fact an ally, you start acting like one.
The glamorous social circle of the most famous wives and girlfriends. Playing for keeps. Monday night at 10:30 on viutv6. If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Every movement has to have a song.
You know what it means?
And if history had a theme song, what would that be?
Tear down this wall.
Democratic convention is about to begin in a police state. Dr. Martin Luther King
was shot to death.
A powerful way to see the world.
Something happening here.
It was the soundtrack to African American resistance.
The music that's tied to history's pivotal moments. Soundtrack. Songs that defined history. Tuesday night at 9:30 on viutv6. The finest desserts and baked goodies.
All your chocolate lovers, enjoy.
Would you like to make really amazing pizza at home?
Think we're onto something.
Recipes you didn't know you could make in your own kitchen.
Anyone can do some beautiful dessert at home.
The best baking tips and hacks.
Do you love to bake? Well, so do I.
Fold and turn.
Exciting twist to your familiar favorites. Martha Bakes. Wednesday night at 8 on viutv6. A man with a golden palate.
Who doesn't like cheese, right? Good news for all the foodies out there, right?
An appetite for the food adventure.
If I have to choose a word that could break the boundaries and not distinguish between you and me, I would definitely choose the word food.
A feast of the authentic taste of home.
A very special German dish. So that's a taste of home, actually.
Celebrating food cultures from around the world.
Today we have a friend from Germany. Great food and beautiful stories.
Step into the foodie's paradise right at home.
Awesome!
The Taste of Hometown. Friday night at 7 on viutv6.
The number 10 business envelope, as it's called, is one of the most widely used envelopes in the world. That's because its dimensions, 4 1/8 by 9.5 inches, are perfect for folded sheets of 8.5 by 11-inch paper, which is the standard size in the United States. But unfold a number 10, and you'll see the dimensions of this common envelope are not what they seem. The envelope is actually made from a single sheet of paper that unfolds into a triangle with rounded edges. It looks more like a paper airplane than it does an envelope. Just a single roll of paper stock like this produces 45,000 envelopes. And when fed into this webbing machine, 10 rolls or 44 miles of paper can be cut at once. The webbing machine gathers the paper from all 10 spools and feeds it as a single stack into a die cutter. A die or template like this waits inside the machine. Recognize the shape? Hydraulic pressure forces the paper through the sharp edges of the die, cutting through all 10 sheets of paper at once for maximum efficiency. The sheer force of the die presses out 20 envelope blanks at a time and up to 3 million a day. As the freshly cut envelope blanks emerge from the die cutter, a robotic arm grabs them and stacks them on pallets. After the robot fills a pallet, the envelope blanks move on to the real multitasker of the operation, the rotary adjustable machine. This amazing machine can process, fold, and glue 36,000 business envelopes every hour. The envelope blanks feed into the center of the machine, where a die cuts out the address window and then adds clear film to cover it. Next, the machine stacks the envelopes in such a way that only their licking flaps are exposed. That way, when the envelopes pass by these sticky rollers, the non-toxic licking adhesive ends up on the flaps and no place else. The envelopes then dip down to a conveyor belt inside the machine and pass through a dryer. A fraction of a second later, the envelopes emerge on the other side of the machine for folding. The machine forces the envelope blanks through 2 silver guardrails to fold in the sides. We've slowed it down so you can see the folding action. At real speed, this machine completes 600 to 800 side folds every minute. Next, the machine applies a strong, permanent glue so rollers can fold and seal the bottom flap. At regular speed, it powers out 10 to 13 envelopes every second. Small spinning sensors count out 500 folded envelopes per box. And the envelopes are done, unless the order calls for custom printing. In that case, a 4-color offset printer adds the return address and business logo. As the 4 colors layer on, the logo emerges. The ink is made from vegetable oil, so it's completely biodegradable. A blue UV light instantly dries the ink, enabling the machine to spit out 30,000 printed envelopes every hour without a single smudge. Ever wonder what makes a whistle whistle? It turns out it comes down to 3 key things: the puff of air that's blown into the whistle, the pea inside the barrel, and the slot on top of the mouthpiece. The air travels up the mouthpiece until the sharp edge of the slot slices it in 2. The top of the current peels away from the slot, generating sound waves above the whistle, while the bottom part flows into the barrel, where it swirls around the curved walls to tumble the pea, and then releases back out of the slot to amplify the sound waves above. The tumbling pea disrupts the airflow, giving the whistle its distinctive warble. But surprisingly, the pea doesn't go in until the entire whistle is assembled. Unlike many musical instruments, these whistles get their sound from high-grade brass. That's because this type of brass is easily shaped, and it vibrates in such a way that it creates a high-pitched sound. A brass coil feeds into a 39-ton press that punches out forms that look like a square with mouse ears. This forms the top part of the whistle. The tops stack into another press that folds down the ears to form the sides of the whistle barrel. At the same time, the press stamps out a dimple onto the mouthpiece, something for the lips to grip when the whistle is blown. To make the bottom of the whistle, another coil of brass feeds into a press that does double duty. First, the press cuts notches that will lock the bottom to the top of the whistle. And second, it begins rounding the bottom piece into the barrel. The whistle bottoms stack in another machine that uses 20 tons of pressure to curl the brass into a fully rounded barrel. The top and bottom pieces snap together, and the space between the barrel and the top of the mouthpiece forms the slot that slits the air current to create the whistle sound. A conveyor takes the whistles to a rotating soldering table. A robot places a tip that will attach to a keychain in a soldering pocket. A dab of soldering paste squirts onto the tip. Then a robotic arm attaches a whistle. Paste injects inside the whistle to fill the seams. But it takes a hot flame that shoots through the whistle to melt the solder. A blast of cold air instantly solidifies the solder. Then for the polish, the whistles dump into a giant washer full of 500 pounds of hard plastic pellets. As the machine vibrates, the pellets act like sandpaper and use soapy water to scrub off excess solder while smoothing and buffing the edges. In 10 hours, this tumbler can clean and shine 4,000 whistles. And it's not until the whistles are fully polished that the balls go inside. The balls, made of synthetic cork, load into a machine that forces them through the vent and into the whistle. We remove the side of the whistle to reveal how the ball is squeezed so it will fit through the vent. Here's a look at it again in slow motion. Once inside, the ball bounces back into shape, so it can never fall out. And unlike natural cork, synthetic cork doesn't absorb moisture, crumble, or clog up a whistle. So this whistle will produce a sound that can be heard up to a half a mile away, whenever it's blown.
Coming up next, Mayday Season 12. All-star date night in the comfort of your own home. A-list cast. Best blockbusters ever. What more could one ask for? Theatre 96. Tonight at 9 on viutv6.
She might only be 4'8", but some call her one of the greatest athletes of all time. And with multiple Olympic and World Championship medals to her name, she's the most decorated gymnast in America. Of course, we're talking about the one and only Simone Biles. The third of 4 children, Biles and her siblings grew up going in and out of foster care until her grandfather eventually adopted her. She first tried her hand at gymnastics at 6 years old and had begun her elite career by the age of 14. Within 2 years, she was already competing internationally, and after participating in the 2016 Olympics, she became a household name. Winning 4 times, the then 19-year-old Simone set a new American record for taking the most gold medals in women's gymnastics at a single games. With all eyes on her, Biles feels the pressure of constantly having to keep up her reputation, both in the gym as well as in her position as a role model to young girls. And she's been very open about her struggle with anxiety.
I think being in the public eye, almost a lot of us have it. So it is kind of normal, but we shouldn't normalize it just because it is a big problem. But yeah, I struggle with it, but I go to therapy and I'm on anxiety meds and stuff like that. So I have things to help me, so I'm very grateful for that.
Of course, in this day and age, anxiety can be triggered even more through hurtful messages on social media.
I've had to deal with the bullying, the trolls online. I've gotten a lot of comments over the past couple of years about how my hair looks, how my calves are too big, my arms are too big. I don't look like the average girl in today's age. I have too many muscles. And so all of those things were pretty hurtful, but at the end of the day, it's obviously taken years and time and maturity, but I've realized I couldn't do what I do without the muscles, without having like just the nice average girl's body. I mean, I am a little bit more muscular, but I am a gymnast, so I need the muscles to do what I do, and I wouldn't win the medals.
To get this message across to her followers, Biles teamed up with several other Olympic athletes and skincare brand SK2 for their campaign Beauty is #NoCompetition.
I think it's an important conversation to have, so obviously I have a very good platform to do so. So I thought it was a great campaign to be a part of, and I just wanted to let girls, boys, women, men across the world know that it's time to end the toxic culture that we have, that beauty is a certain definition. And so I wanted to portray that message that it doesn't matter what you look like, it's what you do and what's in the inside.
And with that, it's safe to say that the talented and good-hearted Simone Biles has cemented her status as an it girl. And we bet she'll be practicing what she preaches for a long time to come.
Top headlines now and ahead. Focus on news, finance, sports and weather. Brought to you by the sole public broadcaster of Japan. Deliver the latest from Japan, Asia and around the world with a unique Asian perspective. Led by a team of trusted anchors, reporters and producers. LHK Newsline, weekdays at 1 on viutv6.
Who's hungry? Let's do some cooking.
Get your apron on and join the British culinary duo in the kitchen.
Kate Hudson, everyone!
Where they welcome celebrity guests for the cooking lesson of a lifetime.
Beautiful. Brilliant. I think my mum would be super proud.
Delicious.
Plus, the duo is on a mission to cut food waste and get people eating better.
Oh, my Lord. This is a humongous amount of waste.
Service!
Jamie and Jimmy's Food Fight Club. Monday and Tuesday nights at 8 on viutv6.
Guys, are you still hungry?
Ancient mysteries unraveled by modern-day technology.
This is something we've never seen before.
From the secrets of the mummies.
Don't ever judge a mummy by its cover.
Oh my gosh.
It must have been hell on earth.
These are Egypt's unexplained files. Monday night at 9:30 on viutv6. The weather today is sunny.
How is it out there today?
Same as it always is. Perfect.
It's warm during the day.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, you?
Yeah, well.
With an occasional breeze.
That was your big date.
It's really good.
Comfortable and cool overnight.
I'm going to call a cab, but my battery's died. Oh, no, it's not a lie.